found so remarkable last week. And so June, I was telling you I can sing. I'll start this evening's with a Christian, a little song that you'll be very familiar with. So it's 8 o'clock. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above, ye heavenly host. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen. Before many of the rest of you joined us, I was bragging to June that with my newly recovered energy and the fact that the left ventricle of the heart apparently supplies blood to the throat and the face. I was bragging to her that I was able to sing. So good evening, everyone, and so good to be with you. Heidi, would you be so good as to read Until Your Own Dawn?
I'd be happy to.
And I'm sorry, what page is this on?
208. 208, dear.
208.
Okay. Until your own dawn. Daybreak. Everything in this world is a luminous divine dream I have spun. I did not know life was a fabric woven by my soul. Any form that can appear to you, should I confess this? It is something I made. All roots nurse from me. God's art is mine. I did not want his divine talent. It simply grew in my heart from the way I loved. Existence is as a young child moving through a lane at night. It wanted to hold my hand. Here, dear earth, hold me until your own dawn.
So this is the remarkable testimony, which I think we can believe quite literally, of a realized soul, a saint, that they share with the divine being because they have become the divine being. They are one with the divine being. As Christ said, be ye perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. They are perfected beings. This is well known in mystical literature that the illumined, who are truly one with the divine, who are truly perfected, share this capacity for creativity and complete joy that comes with that. Before we go on to reading about Kabir, is there any other thought that anyone has about that stunning and revelatory poem? All right, dears. Haima, would you like to read to us about Kabir?
Sure, Brother Shankara, I'll be glad to.
Please remember to read slowly.
Okay, sure. Kabir, the fish in the water that is thirsty thirsty needs serious professional counseling.
Which, we're introduced to Kabir
Yes,
with his humor.
yes.
Right away, we get the idea that this Kabir guy is funny.
It seems like for 500 years, the poems of Kabir, c. 1440 to 1518, have been recited and sung throughout India. Kabir was a great religious reformer in his time, as well as a famous artist and musician, founding a sect that still claims to have 1 million followers. Kabir achieved a remarkable synthesis of Hindu, Muslim, and even Christian belief. Rabindranath Tagore, the famous Bengali poet and novelist who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913, was a major force in bringing the wonderful poems of Kabir to the attention of the West when he published some translations of Kabir in 1915. Some present-day readers of Kabir liken him to something of a tough guy, a Zen bruiser, a divine smart aleck, but there are many dimensions of this great master that one can bring to light, including his rarely revealed tenderness and his delicious, freeing humor. As all of Kabir's poems were, probably, originally songs, one of the many legends surrounding his life may be true. He chose not to read or write, as this rendering also leads one to think paper would turn to flame if I touched it in an ecstatic mood, and ink dries if it comes 100 feet within the radiance of one who will not let God leave their arms. Why trouble a pen to labor? I've got naked angels camping on my floors with nothing more to do than imprint my words upon the sky when I sing them. Having mentioned the fate of paper when I'm in love, and I'm always in love, how could a son like me ever appear dressed?
Mhm.
Sounds like an interesting mystery that can help the bored pass some time. Kabir was born in Varanasi in North India into a family of weavers who had recently converted to Islam, though it is widely believed that he was a disciple of a famous Hindu guru, Ramananda. While a family man and a weaver, Kabir passionately sought to show the way out of delusion, including the delusion of religious identity. During his lifetime, both mainstream Hindus and Muslims denounced him, only coming to claim and revere him as their own after his death. Kabir was well aware of the misunderstanding of the public toward a true mystic. This is reflected in the unique irony that pervades his poetry. Even so, there can be discovered a remarkable compassion and tenderness in his verse, as portrayed in No Harm Done. Kabir's life both exemplifies and parallels all of the saints in this book, as well as any living master. That is, Saints will usually create or allow controversy about themselves that then serves as a kind of watchdog to keep the world at an arm's distance. The people who can get close to such a saint have to go through an ego dying process. It is a paradoxical spiritual truth. The closer a teacher is to God, the harder they are to have faith in and or live around, while the less advanced the teacher is, the more they can be easily accepted by the average person. Kabir, even when he had many wealthy followers, chose to live in a very small rundown house in a rough section of town where people were afraid to venture at night. It was the same area where the butchers had their shops, where the dying shrieks of animals confronted all ears, and where the stench of slaughtered animals could become unbearable in the summer months. The circumstances Kabir lived in were especially challenging to some of his Hindu disciples who were strict vegetarians. Where he chose to live would probably have kept many of his present day readers so at odds with their spiritual standards that they would not even visit Kabir if he were alive today. My point being that what we see of historic saints is often tremendously edited, as a way a parent might edit what their child hears and sees. Christianity as a whole at times strikes me as a remarkably edited view of God, as do the beliefs of any religion that promotes any kind of division between the soul and creation. But how wonderful such views exist to help the spiritually young grow. The problem, though, becomes we begin to want God in our terms, not His. And our conditional terms will probably always keep us separate from the one we say we love and the one we need to unite with. What an irony. With so much religious propaganda playing havoc with us, when I felt it was legitimate, I have tried to fill in some of the blanks, unedit light's freedom, and not weaken the sweet divine punches like this playful, witty one again when Kabir says, the fish in the water that is thirsty needs serious professional counseling. The glorious role of the mystical poets is to help us accept God more as He is and ever less than our prejudices and fears want Him to be. May Kabir's poems help reduce the income of psychiatrists and maybe even undermine a military budget or two. Why not dream big? Do you want me to read it second time, Brother Shankar?
No, that's fine.
Okay,
Thank you for a very good reading.
thank you. You're welcome.
Any comments or questions about what Haima just read about this remarkable being Kabir? Okay.
In India, we always had his poems while we were in elementary, middle school times, Brother Shankara. Kabir's poems. In poetry of our own mother tongue, they always gave us Kabir poems. It's been so long ago, but he was always remembered in all the textbooks there.
And I think probably, as Ladinsky points out, in an edited version.
Yes, probably. Thank you.
I don't think that there was much about naked angels on his floor in those.
That's right.
All right. Kabir, one of the great mystical poets, and as he said, I daren't get near paper when I'm in love, and I'm always in love because it would just turn to flame. And ink dries up if it comes within 100 feet of me. So he simply sang these songs, apparently. That's what Ladinsky says. And people took them down. So, Sharda, are you in a reading mood?
Sure. I was just looking up the link for the Kabir project for anyone who might be interested. There's some wonderful videos and whatnot of people performing Kabir's work as songs, as music. Anyway, it's not coming up for some reason, but I'll go ahead and read.
I just laugh.
Let's see. Okay. I just laugh. If I told you the truth about God, you might think I was an idiot. If I lied to you about the beautiful one, you might parade me through the streets shouting, "This guy is a genius." The world has its pants on backwards. Most carry their values and knowledge in a jug that has a big hole in it. Thus, having a clear grasp of the situation, if I'm asked anything these days, I just laugh. I'd like to have a beer with Kabir.
Indeed.
I like that.
Okay, I'm going to read it again. I just laugh. If I told you the truth about God, you might think I was an idiot. If I lied to you about the beautiful one, you might parade me through the streets shouting, "This guy is a genius." This world has its pants on backwards. Most carry their values and knowledge in a jug that has a big hole in it. Thus, having a clear grasp of the situation, if I am asked anything these days, I just laugh.
Thank you, Sharda. Very nice reading.
I love Kabir. I really just.
Me too. The,
You know,
the light heart, deep, deep, deep realization, but a light heart. What were you going to say? I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Nothing, really.
I think it's just very interesting as we think about Ladinsky and what he does here. It's just so interesting that he leads with this poem. If I told you the truth about God, you might think I was an idiot. If I lied to you about the beautiful one, you might parade me through the streets shouting, "This guy is a genius." Yeah. So let's want to hear the truth and laugh along with Kabir. As Sharda said, I'd like to sit down and have a beer with this guy. Anybody else have anything to say about this remarkable start to the section on Kabir?
Yeah, I just want to share. I just have a comment.
Yes.
It reminded me of the Gandhi's quote, where he says, "We are all seeking to know the unknown, to speak about the unspeakable, and something else, and think about the unthinkable, and that is why our speech falters." So that just reminded me, when you just laugh, when someone asks you about God, all you can do is just, you can sit there like an idiot, because that's all you can do in the face of the truth. So yeah, that's all I have to share.
Well, thank you, Anshu. That was very well said and very well remembered about Gandhi.
Brother Shankara, whoever said laughter is the best medicine, Kabir definitely gives this medicine to us today in this poem.
Yes.
And every word he said is so true, Brother Shankara. It's really true. We always got, he also said in his biography, what I read, we begin to want God on our terms, not on his terms. See, we always want we cannot go with the life's terms. We always want on our own terms. All of us are guilty of.
And then Ladinsky even affirms that, saying, yes, well, that's necessary to help the young grow.
Yes, that's very true. If we lied about the God, and then so everybody will say he's genius, which is very true. If we say God is within us and they think that we are stupid, definitely that's very, very well-known fact, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Haima. Anything else from anyone? Well, let's prowl on then and see what else there is that Kabir has to say that is laughter. Bart, are you there?
Yes, Brother Shankara.
Would you care to read What Kind of God?
I would. I'd be glad to. Are you able to hear me all right?
Absolutely, perfectly well.
Okay, thank you. What kind of God? What kind of God would he be if he did not hear the bangles ring on an ant's wrist as they move the earth in their sweet dance? And what kind of God would he be if a leaf's prayer was not as precious to creation as the prayer his own son sang from the glorious depth of his soul for us? And what kind of God would he be if the vote of millions in this world could sway him to change the divine law of love that speaks so clearly with compassion's elegant tongue, saying, eternally saying, all are forgiven. Moreover, dears, no one has ever been guilty. What kind of God would he be if he did not count the blinks of your eyes and is in absolute awe of their movements? What a God. What a God we have. What kind of God? What kind of God would he be if he did not hear the bangles ring on an ant's wrist as they move the earth in their sweet dance? And what kind of God would he be if a leaf's prayer was not as precious to creation as the prayer his own son sang from the glorious depths of his soul for us? And what kind of God would he be if the vote of millions in this world could sway him to change the divine law of love that speaks so clearly with compassion's elegant tongue, saying, eternally saying, all are forgiven. Moreover, dears, no one has ever been guilty. What kind of God would he be if he did not count the blinks of your eyes and is in absolute awe of their movements? What a God. What a God we have. I'll have a beer and an amen.
One of the things that over and over and over we hear from these realized souls is guilt and shame are a fiction. They are a fiction of perhaps well-meaning but cruel people who wish to control others by fear. And so what does he say? Eternally saying, all is forgiven. There was never any guilt. Anything else from anyone, please?
Yes, this is Heidi here. I just am so struck by that first stanza. And then on the second page, there too, it's just, what kind of God would he be if he did not hear the bangles ring on an ant's wrist? I mean, you know how tiny that must be? I mean,
Yes.
a bangle bracelet on an ant's wrist as they move the earth in their sweet dance, you know, kind of like the other week, we were talking about not killing ants and cockroaches, and you all recommended a book. Haven't gotten it yet, but I mean, that just kind of speaks to the value of every tiny, you know, thing, creature. I'm just so struck by that, you know?
Thank you, Heidi. Yes.
And then on that second page, what kind of God would he be if he did not count the blinks of your eyes and is in the absolute awe of their movement? I mean, you blink your eyes and you don't even think about it, you know? So, again, just one of those little everyday things you do. I guess I'm just so in awe of that because it just fills me with so much like hope and love that God has for each one of us. You know, it's
Yes.
just, it's almost overwhelming to, if I really get down there and think about it, you know, I could almost cry. Okay.
Heidi, yes, that's the point. That is the point. Laugh or cry. Let it overwhelm us. Let it overwhelm our everydayness and see deeper into the everydayness with Kabir and these other great souls. Exactly. Let us laugh or cry along with Kabir. Thank you, Heidi. That was so beautifully said. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Swayam.
again, one of those reassuring poems that takes away the fear and guilt of whatever it is that we carry in our hearts, including the guilt of sometimes having a hard time believing in I wouldn't say believing in God, but understanding the dimensions. And I just wanted to say that some of the couplets of Kabir in Hindi are just so sweet. I mean, the analogy he uses, and like Cindy said, many people have set it to music, and it's just so beautiful. Just one comes to my mind, and I'll just give the English translation. He says that what is the purpose of being like a tall like the date tree, the palm, the date palm, neither it is able to give shade to someone who comes, sits under it, and the fruit is out of reach.
Oh my goodness, what a way to talk about arrogance, huh?
Yes, and every single couplet of his is it just hits the point, and it's just so sweet to read those in Hindi.
Uh,
So,
sure they are. Anything more to say about this? What kind of God would he be? Lest we skip over it, he compares the prayer of a leaf to the outpourings of Jesus. Now that, as you said, Heidi, if we sit with that and we let it sink in, that everything is one with the divine, and the divine pours out itself through all of it.
I think Jesus understood that as well, because I remember a quote by Jesus where he says, "Look how the flowers grow. They neither toil nor do they."
Spin.
So I think spin, yes. So I think Jesus understood that just as well as Kabir.
Millions of votes would not cause him to change the divine law of love that speaks so clearly with compassion's elegant tongue, saying, eternally saying, all are forgiven. Moreover, dears, no one has ever been guilty. And then, as Heidi points out, he goes to another one of these seemingly completely everyday examples, the blinking of your eyes. This is something that these great ones tell us, that God is so in love with her creation. What a God we have. Anything else before we go on? The smart dogs ran off. I sat one day with a priest who expounded on the doctrine of hell. I listened to him for hours. Then he asked me what I thought of all he said, and I replied, that doctrine seems an inhumane cage. No wonder all the smart dogs ran off. The smart dogs ran off. I sat one day with a priest who expounded on the doctrine of hell. I listened to him for hours. Then he asked me what I thought of all he said, and I replied, that doctrine seems an inhumane cage. No wonder all the smart dogs ran off. I think we've got a screen full of smart dogs here. These are the people who are willing to listen to Kabir, not to some perhaps well-meaning, but self-interested priest who wants to use the idea of hell to discipline us, to create, as Kabir says so beautifully, an inhumane cage. Anyone else have anything to say about this remarkable, short, but very pungent poem?
Kabir's poems are just, there's not a whole lot you can say. Doesn't mean there's not a reaction, but he's so straightforward. He's not, trying to be anything or have his work be anything. He just puts it right out there and puts it in a way that it's difficult to not understand it. So that was some double negatives there.
Good, well said. Well said, Sharda. June, how is Kabir reaching you? What is it that this is giving rise to in you? If I can ask you to speak about it, please.
I think he's pretty straightforward.
Yes.
Yeah. And yes, and especially guilt and shame. Seems to me that once you can figure out that you have done something that might offend God, let it go. I don't think God wants us to dwell on our missteps.
I think that's exactly what Kabir is telling us, all right.
It's interesting that he says a priest was, how did he put it?
Expounding, I think.
Expounding, yes. And I think in those times, they used to really try to use the fear of going to hell.
Oh, you don't have to do anything more than find yourself a televangelist and you'll hear it still. And by the by, send me some money and I'll send you a prayer cloth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, this is a little off the subject, but most of my prayers these days and meditation is concerned with what can I do to help with unscrambling so many misconceptions.
Well, one understanding of that, June, is that you are doing it by your simple act of praying and radiating that energy of wanting to unscramble so many misconceptions. Each of us, as these saints tell us, is far more powerful than we know, particularly when our thoughts are clear and pure and distill themselves through the heart into the kind of prayer that you just talked about. We are one with the divine. And if the prayer of a leaf is dear to God, you can imagine how dear your prayers are.
Thank you, Shankar.
That radiance that comes from our hearts, that radiance that comes from our clear and pure intentions and actions, is far more powerful than we know.
Brother Shankar.
Yes, please.
So what you're saying is like when we pray to God and we don't necessarily feel the presence of God, like are you saying that these prayers and intentions like are happening or like working in ways that we are just not aware of?
Aaron, if thank you for that wonderful question. If we take seriously the idea, which is more than an idea, if we take seriously the reality that we are one with the divine, whether our mood allows us to experience that unity and that presence of God in that moment, does not have any effect whatsoever on the reality of what we are doing, our prayers, our intentions. Swami Prabhavananda would say, what, do you think you are separate? We are not separate. So as we practice and practice and practice, the presence of the divine becomes more apparent to us. As the Swami said, feel that living presence. But it comes and goes, particularly in the beginning. It comes and it goes, and it comes and it goes, and it comes and it goes. And some days will go by where we think, oh, it's gone. And then, but there it is again. So, because we don't sense the presence of the divine, does not mean in any sense that we are separate from the divine. That's the understanding from here. Does
It
that
can be very, yes, I was just going to say one quick comment. It can be very easy to like want to not do your spiritual practice just solely on the reason because you don't feel the presence of God.
Oh, yes. The term used from here, this was years back, was mud mind. Just get into these days would go by of just mud mind, trying to do the spiritual practices. It was like wading through mud in a swamp. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And the assistant minister in Hollywood, Swami Sarvadevananda said, pay no attention to it, just keep practicing. It will go away. And indeed, it did go away, and then it came back. But because there was no surrender to the annoyance of mud mind, eventually it's mostly gone away. Anything else from anyone about the nature of our relationship with the divine as represented in these poems, or just in our own experience?
I think that, we are both thinking and feeling beings.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get a feel of the divine, we want to keep feeling it.
Yeah,
uh,
right.
More so than when we think about the divine, you
Yeah.
know. But sometimes, we're also not machines, and we go back and forth. And sometimes I think we're not feeling as much, and it's not just the divine we're not feeling. So it's just like when you're having a moment or a day or even a week like that, just let yourself think about, put your faith in your thoughts, until the feels come back. But we need them both. We really do need them both.
Well, without the thinking part, we wouldn't be able to cope. It's true.
Yeah, but I mean, just when I said that we need them both, I mean, as far as it makes this faith in and connection to the divine stronger to use them both, is what I meant.
Even better said. June, you endorsed, I heard you say something that endorsed what Sharda said at the beginning.
Yes.
What was it?
Yes.
Yes, what was it you were endorsing, and what were you feeling?
Uh, it's just when you have experienced being wholly with God, um, you do want that experience again.
Yes.
It's I can't even describe it, and it comes in when you don't even expect it.
Yes. Thank you, June. Thank you very much.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I think that when I fail to see the presence of God, I'm just not tuned into the right channel. Uh, Come Monday, Tuesday, whenever there is a class, there's something that I'm like waiting all day to join. And this is where I feel the presence of God. And Fridays, I feel miserable because there's no class.
Aw.
So I think, so I mean, again, it's just tuning into the right channel, I guess.
Well, as Sharda just said, Go ahead and think about that feeling miserable. What is it? What is it that is producing that miserable feeling? Swayam, would you like to read this next poem, A Man with Amnesia?
Sure. A man with amnesia. With a begging bowl in hand, a man with amnesia knocks on his own door. My guru cured me of that profound illness. God asking God for forgiveness or alms. A man with amnesia. With a begging bowl in hand, a man with amnesia knocks on his own door. My guru cured me of that profound illness. God asking God for forgiveness or alms. I think it speaks to the confidence in the inner self. Like Swamiji says that the one who doesn't believe in his own self is as much an atheist as somebody who doesn't believe in a God. Translating into the same, what we've been talking about, that divine is you yourself, it's inside.
Yes. I mean, what a profound image he starts with. With a begging bowl in hand, a man with amnesia knocks on his own door. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of what Cindy said the other day when she was talking about God eating God.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I guess we need to realize that true love is recognizing that everything is you, and you're the source of your true self with the big S is the source of all wisdom, I guess. But of course, it's hard to get there, you know. So yeah,
it's hard to get there, no doubt, but it's easy if we just listen attentively to such as Kabir. For a moment, we get it. For a moment. And that
yeah,
moment is transformative.
true.
We get what he's saying. With a begging bowl, a man with a begging bowl in hand, a man with amnesia knocks on his own door. Oh yeah. And then he goes on to explain, my guru cured me of that profound illness, God asking God for forgiveness or alms.
I have a quick question, Brother Shankara.
Yes.
This is kind of off topic, but it reminded me of so I read this article the other day about world hunger, and the stats just appalled me, you know. Uh we have enough food for everyone, 4.2 pounds of food for every single person on earth, and we don't do anything about it. And I was wondering if everyone realizes that this is just God giving God alms, that perhaps, things like world hunger and these man-made ills will disappear. I'd like to hear your thoughts about that.
Just hold that thought. And if you're so moved, just hold that thought for all you're worth, Anshu, that this end. I mean, Christ said, the poor we have always with us. And yet it is in Jewish law that you are to help the poor, the widowed, the orphan. So hold that thought with all your might, that this end. And then, if you have the resources and you have the motivation to do so, give some money to the Atlanta Community Food Bank, which helps alleviate the situation right here, right now, and give some money to UNICEF. UNICEF tries. I mean, or you can give it to the American Red Cross or to the Red Crescent. These
I'll do that.
organizations make an effort wherever there is severe starvation, you'll find them there. And giving money to the Atlanta Community Food Bank, for every dollar you provide to them, they provide 4 meals. Just now, they have someone who has stepped up and said, "I'll double anybody's contribution that is made." I don't know if that's still going on. It was going on recently. So $1 that you give, because somebody doubles that, then provides 8 meals. And according to, as you say, the statistics, 25%, 1 out of every 4 children in Atlanta goes to bed hungry.
Say that again, please.
Okay, June, according to the information provided by the Atlanta Community Food Bank, 1 out of every 4 children in the Atlanta Metroplex goes to bed hungry. And of course, most of those children are children of color.
Yes.
That makes no difference whatsoever to the Atlanta Community Food Bank. They don't serve just this person or that person. They themselves do not provide the food directly to the people who are in need. They provide the food to qualified and functional food pantries, churches, other nonprofits that actually feed people.
Right.
And they're very good at it. They're very good at estimating who's good at providing meals and actually feeding people. I mean, they don't just give to anybody who comes to the door and says, "Give me some food, I'll give it to people." No, no, no. Anyway, the Atlanta Community Food Bank is a great place to give some money if you're interested in feeding people. Thanks for bringing that up, Anshu. It has to be practical, doesn't it? It has to be. Our love and our compassion has to find some way to actually make a difference in the world. Well, we know that it happens by the very radiance of our beings. That, as I said about June's prayers, that is certainly acknowledged by all of these saints and was very much a principle of the saintly teacher from whom I learned so much, Swami Prabhavananda. So just your sincere, loving wish for there to be more justice and equity and love and compassion will make a difference. Then anything you can do beyond that to provide the green energy, as we used to say in the 60s, the green energy, money, to make that happen. Any other final thoughts from anyone? Okay, it's after 9 o'clock.
Oh,
We'll take it up next week with this very, very funny poem, See If They Wet Their Pants.
I read that today.
Isn't that funny? I mean, it is really so true. See if they wet their pants. So I'll just close with this Sanskrit prayer and its translation. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amrutangamaya Abir Moiti. O dearly beloved Lord, lead us from this place of endless change and relentless noise to thine abode of silence and peace. Lead us from this place of endless change and relentless noise to thine abode of silence and peace. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through. Light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. Go forward in the loving embrace of the divine presence, the divine being, the beloved one, the beautiful one. So until next we meet, which might be next Monday night, or for those of you who choose, we are going to study the life of Holy Mother tomorrow night, and then Wednesday night something else, and so on and so forth. So any final thoughts, anything to add or ask from anyone?
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, June. Thank you for being part of this. We so look forward to being with you. And that goes for every one of you on the screen. What an aggregation. Come, let us go forward together. Anything else? All right.
Thank you, Brother Shankar. See you tomorrow.
See you next time, everyone. Good
Thank
night,
you so
Heidi.
Good
much.
night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
See you soon.
Good night.
Good night, June.
Good night, Heidi.
Love you.
Love you too.
Sayonara, everyone.